Good morning. I'll add my welcome to Brian's. Appreciate Brian doing the announcements for us and the opening prayer. One of my daughters, the oldest one, Hannah, had a surgery several years ago up in Knoxville. It was on a Tuesday. I don't remember what time. It seemed like it was 10 in the morning or something. And Brian rolls in, and I thought, after a while, we'd visited and something. I said, Brian, what are you doing here? And he said, well, I took a vacation day to come up here. So I appreciate Brian's heart. Appreciate him taking the announcements in the opening prayer. I've got a page of notes. I think I've got everything on the PowerPoint this morning that I need. I don't know if I can see either one of them, but we'll battle forward and try our best. I'll add my welcome to Brian's for those on the stream, those that are at home. I wasn't sure what numbers we'd have this morning. Been kind of hard to tell what people's reaction would be, but I'm glad that you're here. It's first day of the week, so we assemble together if we're able. If you'd like to turn in your Bibles to our if you want to say the foundation scripture for my sermon, it comes from Hebrews, the 6th chapter. Hebrews chapter 6. Kind of the impetus for this lesson came from a conversation I was having with Miss Roberta. That's been some months ago, I guess. Kind of a funny conversation, I think it was. She said, come here, I want to say something to you. So I came over there and she said, have you listened to that lesson by Cliff Goodwin? And I said, on Cities of Refuge. And she said, yes. And I thought that was kind of funny of all the, it was out of the blue, but I had listened to it and she had. And it was a powerful lesson. I wish I could present that to you this morning. That's not going to be what you're going to get. I think my first time preaching that I recall wasn't very good. I was probably 15 years old, maybe 16, I don't remember. Should have done better. But I think it was about 3 minutes long, start to end. And you're not going to get 3 minutes this morning. But anyway, I pray that it'll be worth our time together. We're studying the scriptures. I think it always is. This is actually called the Refuge Castle, I think over there somewhere in Europe. But just a slide to get us started. This is the passage. If I think I can do this. Maybe I'm smart enough. We'll see. The space bar ain't working. What if I hit that? So let's read the passage. This is Hebrews 6. And we'll go on past verse 18, I think, to verse 20. Wherein God, willing more abundantly to show unto the heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel, confirmed it by an oath, that by two immutable things in which it was impossible for God to lie, we might have a strong consolation who have fled for refuge to lay hold upon the hope set before us. Which hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast, and which entereth into that within the veil, wherein the forerunner is for us entered, even Jesus, made an high priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So my plan this morning is to try to just take those 4 verses and kind of like the old miner digging at the vein of silver or gold, we're going to take our little pick and we're going to pick out the good stuff in those verses, and let's just examine it, turn it over in our hands, and look at what the Hebrew writer is saying to us. First of all, let's key on that first phrase there that we have, the heirs of promise. The heirs of promise, and let's think about who that is. Let's go back to Genesis, to God's promise to Abraham. This is Genesis chapter 12, starting at verse 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abraham, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house into a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation. And I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. Now we can figure out how some of that other is going to happen. But what do you think Abraham thought about? In you, all families of the earth will be blessed. Well, we know from our perspective today, don't we, that through Abraham, through his descendants, eventually, over the centuries, would be born Jesus Christ. And through him, of course, everyone on earth would be blessed. And you can see the fulfillment of that here. Paul writes to the Galatians in chapter 3, starting at verse 6, even as Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. Know ye therefore that they which are of faith, the same are the children of Abraham. And the scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the heathen through faith, we're the heathen, preached before the gospel unto Abraham, saying, in thee shall all nations be blessed. So then, they which be of faith are blessed with faithful Abraham. So, who are the heirs of promise? Well, certainly you could say that would be Abraham and his descendants, but also spiritually, that's us. We're also heirs of that promise in that we're blessed with the whole rest of the world through Jesus Christ. So we are also heirs of promise. So wherein God, willing more abundantly to show unto the heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel, confirmed it by an oath. And that kind of sounds like, immutability, kind of sounds like your remote's not working. You know, it's immutable. I can't make it mute during the commercials, and you change your batteries. My wife doesn't like it when I'll get a message and it says, your batteries are low, and so I'll hold it up higher. But immutable doesn't have anything to do with your TV remote. Immutable basically means it's unchangeable or changeless. Either way you want to think about it, it's not going to change. So he's got an immutable counsel. It's not going to change. But he confirms it by an oath that by two, here's our word again, two immutable things. So two things that aren't going to change. Not just one, as if that should have been enough, right? But he's going to pile up another one and give us two immutable things in which it was impossible for God to lie. Well, what are the things? Well, I think most commentators pretty much agree on it. One, well, you got God's promise. He gave Abraham a promise. And is God going to keep it? Well, yes. Of course he's going to keep it. God keeps his promises. Now, people, maybe, hopefully. You probably got somebody that's, you can count on them, right? You've got that person. If they say it, you write it down. But does that mean nothing can happen where they couldn't do it? Could they get sick? Could they have a car accident? And when they don't show up, you think, well, something's happened because they would have been here. They would have done what they said, but something happened. But God, see, nothing can keep him from fulfilling his promises. Nothing can keep him from fulfilling his promises. It's an immutable thing. The other thing is God made an oath. He swore. And we'll make oaths sometimes, and we'll talk about that in a second. But who can God swear by? Well, there's nobody else, right, except himself. But he makes an oath that he will keep it. He makes a promise. He makes an oath to Abraham. But God cannot lie. It makes me think, this is not an actual photograph, by the way, but it's supposed to be of George Washington. And you know that story, right? The cherry tree. And I got to think about that. He gets a new hatchet. I'm like, who gives a little boy a hatchet for a present? But he's got a hatchet. And if you give a little boy a hatchet, well, yeah, what do you think is going to happen? But he goes after the cherry tree, and you can see in the picture there and the father was just pleased that he told him the truth. Because according to the story, JC might question the historicity of this, and I might join him, that, Father, I cannot tell a lie, which actually in itself is a lie, right? Of course he can tell a lie. Whether that's true or not, that's a biographer of George Washington added that later in the 5th edition of his biography. Anyway, it's a good story. I think he was kind of showing the character of George Washington, or at least trying to, and he is kind of one of my heroes. But he said, I cannot tell a lie, but we can. We absolutely can, and sometimes we do. Whether it's some kind of pressure we're under and we'll blurt out something that isn't true. But God, think about that. He cannot do that. It's not just that you say, I will not do that, but he cannot. God cannot lie. And he made a promise. And he made an oath. We have the oath on testimony occasionally. well, every time, I guess, when the president takes his oath of office, and which way is it? You put your left hand on the Bible and you raise your right hand, I think is what it is. And this is actually in the Constitution. I didn't know that. This is what it says. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So that is actually in the Constitution. And that's what the president said. He takes an oath of office. Or if you're going to serve in a jury or testify or whatever, I guess not on a jury, but if you're given testimony of some kind, you would make an oath sort of like this. Now, it's actually different in different countries. I saw that. That was interesting to me. This is the American one, although it's different in Washington, which that's another conversation. It says, do you solemnly swear, again with the Bible in the hand, do you swear that you will tell the truth? You've heard this before. It's on TV, right? The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. And it's kind of what God says. He doesn't give the sworn testimony, but he says, Abraham, I swear I'm going to do this. And he's really swearing by himself. Who else can he swear by? Because he's God. There's no one greater, right? If we're going to an extreme, if we're really held to something, we might say something kind of strange, like on my mother's grave. Of course, if she's still alive, that doesn't mean anything. But, we'll say something to kind of try to fortify our truth, right? This is really true. You got to believe me. What else can I say? But God doesn't really have to do that. Because when he says truth, it is the truth. Let's keep going. The second part of this page, starting in verse 18, by two immutable things in which it was impossible for God to lie, we might have a strong consolation. A strong consolation. What's consolation? And we got to define our terms, right? It's basically comfort. We have a strong comfort. Here he's rescued this cat of all things, but we're comforted. We're relieved. We have a strong comfort because of what's happened. Because of God's dependability. Because we know we can count on it, we're comforted. We are consoled. We think of a consolation prize. I guess that does give some comfort, although you didn't win. But here, the idea is more just about comfort. We have a strong consolation. And here's the one I really want to stay with for a minute. Who have fled for refuge. Who have fled for refuge. We have a strong consolation who have fled for refuge. So, again, what's refuge? Our little fellow's trying to figure things out here. We use that word sometimes when we think about a wildlife refuge, right? And we'll partition off an area for the rhinos or for the giraffes or maybe for the big cats or whatever. And we try to protect them because they have a refuge. Well, the refuge there, you see, that's where they're protected, maybe from poachers or disease or maybe their environment is getting destroyed, whatever. But they have a protection from the danger in the refuge. We flee for refuge. But the Hebrew writer is really not thinking about wildlife refuges. He's going back to the Old Testament, which he does a bunch. He's going back to the Old Testament, and you could go to a bunch of passages, but here's one place you could go, to Numbers 35. Numbers 35 says, And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When you come over the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall appoint you cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the slayer may flee thither, which killeth any person at unaware. King James there, what he's saying is, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to kill him. Something happened. There was an accident. And here's an example in Deuteronomy. I won't read this, but Moses gives an example here in Deuteronomy 19 of two fellas basically going out to cut some wood. Well, that's pre-chainsaw. They're going to use an axe. Well, think about what an axe is. You are doing your best to marry together this wooden handle with, it could have been a stone top or iron, probably wasn't steel, but anyway, a different material, and you want that to not come apart. Now, today's axes, most of the ones I've fooled with, you've got a split in the top of the handle where the hole in the axe head will fit down, and then you have a wedge that you drive down. What are you trying to do? You're trying to keep it together. But what are you going to do with it then? You're going to take that and knock it against a tree and hope it stays on there. Now, that seems like a strange idea to do, but now, what is bound to happen eventually? Eventually, that head's going to say, I'm out, and it's going to come off. If you use an axe long enough, I promise, because you're going to have some mishits, the handle will get some nicks, it'll swell, it'll shrink, it'll get old, and the head's going to come off. Now, we don't use an axe as much as people used to back in the day, but that's what these men were using. They're using an axe to cut some trees down. I don't know if it's firewood, I don't know if they're building a house, I don't know if it's brothers or friends, I don't know. But what happens is, the axe comes off. And it hits the other guy and kills him, in Moses' example here. And he's dead. And so then what is the man that was alive, what is he going to do? Well, that's what the cities of refuge are for. He's going to go to the city of refuge because, now wait a minute, the family may come after him. Might be his own family. And so he's got to flee. He's got to run because they call it the Avenger of blood. The relative will come after you. So you'd better run. You'd better get into safety to a city of refuge. Now here in Joshua, let's look at what these are actually going to appoint to cities of refuge. So this is kind of what this section is about. And it's kind of interesting when you look back at it, I think I'm right, that Moses actually appointed 3 of them on the eastern side of the Jordan while he's still alive. You know, he picked those cities out, and then the other 3 then were designated after Moses had died, I guess by Joshua. This passage reads, Joshua chapter 20, the Lord also spake unto Joshua, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, Appoint out for you cities of refuge, whereof I spake unto you by the hand of Moses, that the slayer that killeth any person unawares and unwittingly may flee thither, and they shall be your refuge from the avenger of blood. Just like we talked about. Here's the cities. I don't have to read all that to you, but there's 6 of them: Kadesh, Shechem, Kirjath Arba, Bezer, Ramoth, and Golan. And here's a little map if you want to see that. And they're not, for those of you that want them, exactly lined up. Sorry about that. That's just how they are. That's where they are. And if you're way down there in the bottom, I don't know. It's a long way to go, maybe to that first city. Which city could you go to? Well, you might go to the closest. You might not go to the closest if it went through the territory of the family of the man that just got killed by you accidentally. You might go to another one, so you didn't have to go on that road. But those were the cities of refuge for your safety. And there I had that slide in there twice. Sorry about that. But here's a question I think we need to think about is what made the cities of refuge, made them safe, made them a place where you could be protected? Was it high walls? Did they have to get a measuring tape and make sure, okay, this is tall enough to be a city of refuge because the walls were 35 feet high and that meets our minimum standard for cities of refuge? That's not mentioned at all. It's not high walls. It's not, you got to have the heavy gates. I mean, the iron gates. We want bronze gates. We want something, none of this wood gate stuff. Does that make a city of refuge? And that's not part of the qualifications of the city of refuge. What about, was it the military there was really, they really had the biggest guards, all the guys looked like Vernon out there, just you're thinking, I'm not going there to get my guy back out. No, that's not it either, is it? What made the cities of refuge, those 6 cities that were in that verse, what made them a safe place to be? I think you know the answer. Because God said those are going to be cities of refuge. So when that person, that man that the axe handle broke on him, flees there, he's safe because God said he's safe. And it's in God's word, so those avengers of blood said, wait a minute, he's in the city of refuge. Let's turn around, boys. But what if he went to another city? I don't think Jericho was in that list. City of palm trees. Doesn't that sound good? Go to the city of palm trees. It's nice in Jericho after they built the walls back. But, so you went to Jericho instead. How would that work out for you? You think the Avenger of Blood's going to care that you're in Jericho? I think he's going to come into town and be like an old Western drawdown. He's going to come and get you. You wouldn't be safe somewhere else. But God's word said you were safe in the city of refuge. So we fled for refuge. We have fled for refuge. See how he's turned that a little bit? Not the guy in the Old Testament fled for refuge. We have fled for refuge. So it made me think, well, who are we fleeing from? Right? Why are we running again? We need to know the answers to this. And so I'll confess my initial thought, well, maybe it's Satan. Satan's after us, trying to get us. And it does say, right, 1 Peter 5:8, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, is a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. It does say that. But I don't think he's the avenger of blood. What is he? He's the avenger of blood. The relative. Are you following me? It's going to be a relative of somebody we've killed unintentionally. Didn't mean to do that. You can't really just say, my bad. The avenger of blood is wanting justice, right? His loved one that you have killed. But I didn't mean to. You killed him. It's your fault. I don't think it's Satan. I think it's more trouble than that. I think the avenger of blood, if you'll follow me, I'm not trying to push the metaphor too far, it's the Father. God the Father is a little upset the death of his Son. This is 1 Corinthians 15. Paul's talking about the gospel here. He says, I delivered unto you first of all that which I also received, how that Christ died for our sins, according to the Scriptures. Whose fault was it? It's our fault. It's my fault. But I didn't mean to. Lord, I didn't know, Jesus was going to have to die because I couldn't control myself, or I made a mistake, or I've got a problem, Lord. He died because of my sins. Is that right? So whose fault is it? It's my fault. It's our fault. And I realize this passage, I'm not trying to push the parallelism too much, but this is talking about the last day. This is actually Jesus coming in vengeance, but so forgive me, but allow me. I'll read this passage to you. And to you who are troubled, rest with us. When the Lord Jesus shall be revealed from heaven with his mighty angels in flaming fire. This is New Testament, right? In flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God and that obey not the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. We can have a conversation later. Try to convince me that it's not God as the avenger of blood. Maybe you can. Show me some passages. Show me what you got. I'll be glad to talk to you about it. I think in that sense, God is the avenger of blood. He is the one that has been wronged. His Son died at our hands. He is the one we must deal with. We better flee for refuge. But He's provided the refuge, right? He's provided a consolation those who have fled for refuge to lay hold on the hope set before us. The hope. That sounds good. That's what the young men are going to preach about, Lord willing. About the hope set before us. But back then, there was 6 cities, right? You had 3 on one side of the Jordan. Let's see. I got Elon's device here. I don't know if I know how to work it. Apparently not. There we go. You got the Sea of Galilee here. The Jordan River goes all the way down to the Dead Sea. So you got 3 cities there, and there on one side of the Jordan. And then you got your 3, those are the 3 that Moses lined out before he died, on the east side of the Jordan. So those are your 6 cities, and you could go to any one of them, right? They're equally protective, equally cities of refuge. There's no like, well, you got to go to this one if your name starts with A through E. It doesn't work like that. You can go to any of them. But now there's just one hope. Right? Does the Bible say that? It does. Ephesians 4:4, I got it on the screen. There's one body and one Spirit, even as you are called, and one hope of your calling. There's just one. And I think, again, looking at his imagery, what the Hebrew writer is saying, and say the Hebrew writer, our refuge is the church. That's where we can find refuge from the Avenger of blood. Where we're safe, despite our sin, our mistakes, our sins, the blood on our hands, as it were. We're safe in the church. And the church is the body of Christ. That's what the Bible says, Ephesians 1:22 and 23, and hath put, and this is God doing it, and hath put all things under his feet, that is Jesus' feet, and gave him to be head over all things to the church, which is his body. The church is his body. The church is Jesus' body. And there's only one body. Back to Ephesians 4:4, what does it say? There's just one. Now there's 7 of them there in the verse. I don't know if I can label them off now or not. There's 7 ones in there. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, is above all and through all and in you all. There's if you count them all, there's 7 ones. There's one body. And it says his body is the church. There's one church. There's one city of refuge. If I had our map back again and erased all those others, you just have to just put one. That's where you need to go for refuge. Hebrews 6:17 says, which hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast, and which entereth into that within the veil. That's a big old anchor, isn't it? I don't know if the picture is telling me the truth. Said it was a Navy anchor, 32,000 pounds, or 16 tons, I guess, if you prefer that. That's a big anchor. But what is an anchor's purpose? What is it designed for? I guess that first little fellow that built the first boat and got out on the water thought, I got to keep this thing from drifting, right? We need something to keep me here on the water, because I drift over here, and then I drift over there, and I drift back into the shore. It didn't take long to figure out, well, you need an anchor, even for a big vessel, right? Maybe even especially for a big one. You need an anchor to keep you there, to keep you safe, to keep your ship safe and sure. Sure and steadfast, it says. This hope we have in the church is an anchor for us, because God's made the provision. We can count on it. We have that hope. An anchor's got to work in the times of difficulty, in a storm. If you got an anchor that won't hold you in place in a storm, what do you have? You don't have anything. You need an anchor big enough, you can tell how big the ships are by the anchor. You can tell that didn't come from a John boat, right? That's a big ship, because it's got a big anchor to hold it there in a storm. And that anchor that we have is sure and steadfast. It's not going anywhere. But let's keep going. The anchor is there, and it says, and which entereth into that within the veil. He's changing gears here on us. He's going back to the Old Testament, thinking about, well, you can think about either the tabernacle or the temple, right? So I got a little diagram, not an actual photo, but a diagram here of the temple. And you got the columns here on the outside. You got gold on the walls. You can read there. You got the table of showbread, and you can't really see the lampstand there, but here's your curtain or veil, the purple or blue. And behind that curtain, this whole section is the most holy place. And here's your Ark of the Covenant. And you read in the Old Testament about those weird storerooms and stuff. That's where he tried to figure out where those storerooms were. But But the idea is this veil separates the most holy part from, I hate to say the regular part of the temple, but that's kind of what it is. And the Hebrew writer even talks about that. Here's Hebrews chapter 9. It says, now when these things were thus ordained, these Old Testament things he's talking about, the priests went always into the first tabernacle. Where are they going? Oh, went back. They're going into that first part. See if I can do that. Yeah. They're going into this first part. He says they're always going into there. They're there every day. All right, they're putting the bread in, they're taking the bread out. They're lighting the lamps, they're putting the lamps out. They're in there a lot. But the second part, that's different. So, who went to the second part? One man. How often did he go? One day of the year. One man went, one day of the year. That's it. And cleaning lady didn't come in there and clean it. Nobody else went in there and did anything. Ever. Just the high priest. One day a year. Day of Atonement, right? The Day of Atonement. Now, if you look on your calendar, you won't see Day of Atonement. Typically, you'll see the Hebrew word, the Hebrew name, Yom Kippur. Yom is Hebrew for one. Kippur is Hebrew for day. The one day. The only day of the year anybody would go in there. And you go in there with blood. That's what he says. Into the second went the high priest alone once every year, not without blood, which he offered for himself and for the errors or the sins of the people. So that's what that imagery is about. He's going in past the veil. Jesus is. Because he's high priest. And we'll see that in a second. But think about back to the cross. Remember this happened in Matthew 27? When Jesus died, it said Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, he yielded up the ghost, and behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom. What did that expose when it was torn open? That most holy place. That only that high priest went in there. So I don't know if the little guys came in there and sewed it back or what they did, but that happened on purpose, right? Also, other things happened. There was an earthquake, rock split, but if it was torn from the bottom, like men doing it, that would be one thing. How did it tear from the top down? Unless it wasn't men doing it, right? God tore it. Access was granted at the death of Christ. When he died, the veil was torn. Something happened there. Jesus then, as high priest, went into the most holy place. That's what he says. He says, entereth into that within the veil, whether the forerunner is for us entered, even Jesus, made in high priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek. That's the only way that he could go in there as high priest. Only the high priest went in there. But spiritually, not into the temple itself. Spiritually, he came before God as high priest of us, high priest of the people. That's the good things he's talking about here in Hebrews 6. The word forerunner is kind of unusual. Only time in the New Testament here, prodromos is what it looks like to me. He's the forerunner and the high priest. Prodromos is only used here. It's usually used if you see our little military scout fella with the super duper binoculars, a reconnoitering party. Can't really say that very easily. I don't know if that's French or what. But he's the one that goes ahead. He scouts. He finds the pathway. This is the way we're going, guys. And come this way. Follow me. This is where we need to go. That's what Jesus did as our forerunner. But think about that for just a second. It's not the idea of the forerunner to go by himself, but for others to follow. Guess who's going to follow? We're going to follow. We follow him. Literally, you remember the song, Footsteps of Jesus. We follow. We'll be in the presence of God too, behind the veil. Where we before couldn't go. We could not go. Now we have access because Jesus. Last book of the Bible, last chapter of the Bible. Let me just read it to you. And he showed me a pure river of water, of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, there was the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And there shall be no more curse, but the throne of God and of the Lamb. Let's see, it cut off my verse there. I'm sorry. The throne of God and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. And here's the one to underline if you mark in your Bible. They shall see his face, and his name shall be on their foreheads. Jonathan talked about that in our training class about Moses going up on Mount Sinai, and when he came down, they couldn't look at him because he was glowing. And God didn't even show him his face. God said, you can't look at my face, Moses. You can't do it. But then, we can. We shall see his face. We'll enter into that presence of God, the most holy place, and we will see God. But what's the key? The key is getting in the city. We got to be in that place of refuge. You have the verses here. Maybe you've heard these before. We have to hear what this is all about. Have to hear about Jesus. Hear the gospel message. Hear that he rose from the dead. Hear that there is hope. That there can be a future beyond this mortal shell. A spiritual reality we all need to accept. We must believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Believe God's word. We must repent. That's a change. It's a turning, right? We turn away from those evil things, those things we have done. Basically, I could say it, turn and flee, right? We need to run from those things. Run in the right direction. We need to confess, basically a public confession, in some manner, that we believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Not just a man, but the Son of God. And we have to be baptized. Acts 2:38, you can see the thousands there say, what shall we do? Well, what did Peter tell them to do? Repent and be baptized. Every one of you. Maybe there's more people there than 3,000. He wanted every one of them to be baptized. Not all of them did. 3,000 did. That's a good number. If we had 3,000 get baptized this morning, we'd never quit telling people about it, wouldn't we? But there's more there than 3,000. He said, every one of you, be baptized for the remission of sins. And then we have to live faithfully. That's the thing on the city of refuge. I should have put those verses on there, shouldn't I? If you're in the city of refuge and you left for some reason, it's a nice day, I thought I'd go for a walk down through the woods. Then the Avenger of blood could kill you. There's no safety outside of the city. No safety at all. As Christians, if we're in the city of refuge, the church don't leave. Don't let Satan, I think that's what he's not the Avenger of blood. I think he's the whispering voice saying, come out here. Stay a while. Wander through these fields. See how nice it is out here? There's no Avenger of blood out here. You'll be fine. Don't worry. Or maybe he's out there and we haven't gone in the city yet and he's saying, there's no hurry. Avenger of blood stuff. Who believes in that? Is that even real? Is there really any refuge in there? Satan works. He's good. We have to put our confidence in what God's word says. Where there really is refuge, where there really is safety for us forever. And we can see God one day if we're faithful until death. If you have need to flee to the city of refuge this morning, the invitation is yours as we stand and as we sing.